everybody, my name is Jo and I love to read. Today I'm going to be doing a review of The High Lord by Trudi Canavan. The first thing that you need to know about this book is that it made me cry for like 10 minutes of sobbing, but regardless I still loved it and I'm still giving it 5 stars. This review will contain spoilers. This is the third book in a trilogy called the Black Magician Trilogy by Trudi Canavan, an Australian author, so that's pretty exciting being an Australian myself. If you don't want to know what happens in this book and subsequently the first and the second, because things that happen in the first ones obviously affect this book, then don't listen to this review. I'm going to go in depth with pretty much everything that happens in the book, including the ending. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then don't watch this review. Go read the trilogy, go read the last book. It is amazing, and then come back and tell me what you thought. If you don't care, or if you've read it, then continue on with me, and don't forget to let me know what you thought in the comments. I am desperate to talk to someone, clearly since I'm posting this review like weeks after I read the book, but still, I really want to talk to someone about it. And I am filming this freshly after I've read it because my heart, oh my god, I need to get it out so I can move on and get on with my life. Now we are going to get into spoiler territory and get straight into this book. Full disclosure, this is my second attempt at an actual single book review video, but it's also the first 5-star gush review, so I'm a little bit nervy, but I do have my lucky booktube t-shirt on because I wore this in a video that I was really nervous about, which was my series ranking of the Clan of the Earth's Children series, and that video did really well. It's my highest one. I have a lot of people that aren't subscribed to me come and comment on it often because they love the series too, so I'm hoping maybe I'll get a lot of people that have read this book that need someone to talk about will talk to me, but we'll see. Anyways, I'm really happy to be doing this video because oh my god, I need to get my feelings out. Oh my god, I've never felt so much pain over a book and a character death as I have in this one. So again, we're in spoiler territory now. Proceed at your own caution, at your own risk. The first thing I want to talk about is the world. So this trilogy, the Black Magician Trilogy, follows Sania, who is a girl from the slums, and she is discovered in the first book to have magical potential. So she is then brought into the Guild of Magicians and trained throughout these 3 books. This fantasy series has a pretty basic world-class system. There is the higher class people, which are called the houses, and there's also the poorer class people who are from the slums. Only the higher class people are accepted into the Guild of Magicians. They don't even bother at looking at magical potential in the slums, which could be present in anyone, but because they don't teach them magic, it doesn't really happen. Sania's happened by accident and because of how powerful she was, hence why she's brought into it. But one of the themes that I really love in this book, which is related to this world building, is that Sania is so passionate about trying to bridge this divide and just trying to get like some basic human rights for people in the slums. So magicians have this ability to be healers. There's 3 different classes of magicians that they specialize in once you've gone through your initial training, which is the warrior class, all about fighting. The god, what's the other one? Alchemy, I think it is. Shit. I think they're the alchemists, and so that's like scientific experiments and things like that. And then there's the healers. And one of the things that Sania is really passionate about is throughout the series is trying to bring healers and free healthcare to the people in the slums, or even not just free healthcare, but like cheap healthcare or just any kind of healthcare whatsoever, because unless you are super rich, you just cannot have any kind of medicinal healthcare. And the healthcare in this system, some things the magicians can fix at the click of a finger, some things they can't and require treatment. And everything in this magic system actually costs energy, so they can't just obviously bring people back from the death. I wish. Not really, but they can't bring people back from the death, and they can't just use all of their energy up to try and heal someone, otherwise that will put them in grave danger as well and potentially kill themselves through that expensive energy. So they do kind of use a mixture of like actual medicines plus like their magic healing abilities, but there is nothing for people that are in the slums, and the slum people are actually afraid of the magicians. So that was something that towards the end of the book actually gets a little bit fixed up. The ending finishes on Sania setting up a hospital. I'm pretty sure she's the driving force behind it, but we kind of get flash forward a couple months later, and she's been working at this hospital for the slum dwellers, and she is able to give them healthcare, and that is really fantastic. So that's always like an interesting divide in the world, and it was one of Sania's driving forces as a character to learn the magician trade and to study, because she really wanted to bring more equality into the world and help people from where she came from, and just to show all the upper class and the guild magicians that there are worthy people living within the slums. It's just their unfortunate shit society has placed them in this role. Because of this world-changing event sort of thing, like this unfair class society that Sania wants to remove, I'm really actually eager to read the next trilogy in this world, because I've read the back of it now that I've read the series, and it talks about Sania being an adult and her son also being an adult as well, and how so I'm really curious to see how that has worked, and how whether Sania was able to push that forward, whether that's going to be a major plot point, or whether things have already improved. Hopefully they've improved some, over however old the kid is, but I think he's at least a teen, so hopefully at that point things have changed, because at the end of this book it's revealed that Sania is pregnant, and when the next trilogy is out he's got to be at least, I think he'd be at least 15, maybe older, and you would hope that things have improved, but I'm really curious to see how things have gone in that regard. The magic system in this final book is built upon from the previous ones, especially in regards to the black magic, which is when you're able to take energy from another being, but also the evil people learn at the end of the book that they can actually take magic from places and things that have had magic imbued in them. So they've got these structures that are called magician made, because they're crazy buildings that are not structural, and they've got all these balconies that are hanging over that would fall over by normal physics standards, but because of magic they've been held up. And so when the evil people are coming in and invading the city, they actually learn that they can take more power from these buildings because the magic is still there. The building's going to fall over after that, of course, but anything that you've sort of put magic into and that the magic is still active and there, they learn that. So that was really cool to build upon that, and I'm interested again to see how that goes in the next trilogy, to see whether they're able to build upon the lore. In terms of actually teaching people magic, I don't feel again that the lore is big enough to warrant a lot of classroom settings, which was actually a flaw in the previous book. I feel like that previous book, the second one, features a lot of lessons with Sania, but it doesn't actually focus a lot on the classes, and I believe because there's not a lot of content to learning it, and a lot of it happens in the magician's mind, and so it's not quite as obvious and as easy to be able to learn the magic, and it's not as much content for the reader to go through. But I did definitely again appreciate how it expanded it upon with the black magic, and the black magic has a lot of avenues as well, where they know that one form of black magic is taking magic from a person or an object that still has active magic and using it to grow their own power. But they also talk about these blood gems. I'm not sure which way it is, but you take someone's blood, and I can't remember whether it is if I give my blood to you, you can see what I'm doing. I think that's what it is, or it may be vice versa, but they put these little blood gems in things like jewelry and things like that, and as long as it is touching the person that is wearing it and that it's intended for, they can actually see the thoughts and the minds and what's going on with the other person that they're linked to, so it must be their blood. So if I gave if I took blood from Daniel and put it in a ring, and I wore it, then I could see his thoughts and feelings all the time, and that was really fascinating. And I also liked that in the romance they made blood rings of each other, so that when they got separated in battle at the end, they would be able to see what each other was doing. But it's really cool that the male actually said these can actually be a curse to be wearing, because you can see exactly what someone is thinking and feeling. And this couple had only just gotten together for the first time, and they were kind of oh my god, is this gonna wreck our relationship? And they'd been physically intimate, but they hadn't really discussed whether this was just an attraction or whether they were actually I'm in love, I want to be with you kind of thing. And so that was really scary, particularly for Sania, because she was a bit oh my god, I know we have to do this, but I don't we haven't talked about this, I don't know what you're feeling, I don't want to because she was sort of all in it, but she didn't want to find out that he wasn't the same. So that was really cool that they expanded on the magic system again, and I'm hoping that even though teaching the magic, like showing how it's used and having like a real teacher kind of scenario doesn't super work, or there's not a lot of content to go on, which is, you know, kind of interesting being that it's a book based on like a magical university. But anyways, I'm hoping that they're still able to expand upon it, even if the teaching of it isn't that broad. Now moving on to the plot. It's the standard sort of good versus evil one. We come into this book thinking that the High Lord, which is what the book is about, Karen, is someone that has kidnapped Sania. He is practicing this evil bad magic and nobody in the guild is allowed to do it. It's a crime punishable by execution, and he has basically kidnapped Sania when she finds out about it so that she's not able to tell anyone, and he kidnaps her by saying that he's picked her to be his favourite, and so he's now her guardian and she has to live at his house. And he's also threatened her mentor, who she really loves as like a father figure, and has said, you know, well, I'm gonna hurt him if you tell me. Or I don't know if he expressively says it, but he kind of like infers it, that like, you know, for your own safety and for everybody else's, you're going to be here and you ain't going to tell anyone. And so we come into this book thinking that Karen is a bad person, but it's sort of something where I know as the reader that Sania, the main character, thinks that Karen is a bad person and she needs to be convinced. But I, as the reader, don't believe that Karen is a bad person. I actually believed, as he was saying, that he has a good reason for doing this, even though he wasn't really willing to tell you that at the end of the last book when she gets kidnapped. And so I really appreciated that Trudi Canavan didn't take her time in being like, oh no, Karen's a bad person. Like, she doesn't try and make the reader believe that he's a bad person in the way that Sania as the character does. And I really appreciated that, because otherwise that would have been really irritating, because we would have just been like, you know, bitch please, like, he ain't a bad person, like hurry up and get to the point where she figures out. And I really, really like that she didn't actually lead us on for such a long time in such a ridiculous way. She pretty much jumps straight into the book, and Sania ends up finding out like pretty well early on in the book what Karen is about, and that he's only learning this black magic to fight this bad evil. It's not super fast paced in a way that is like jarring and you don't give time to things, but straight off the bat we start to learn bits and pieces of what Karen's justification is for this, and then we actually get to the point where Karen's the good person and we believe him. So the plot in a nutshell was a standard good versus evil one with some intrigue thrown in there. There wasn't anything particularly special or groundbreaking about it. For me, it was the characters that made me absolutely fall in love. It was the character relationships. It was the romantic relationship. There are multiple POVs in this book because it is a third-person story, and we have lots of other story members of people within the world that we're going through. I wasn't super interested in everybody's, but Sania's, she was the one that I was fascinated in. I didn't really care that much about Danielle's story for the most part, when he was actually what I was really enjoying in the second book. It was a little bit sad that, well, not a little bit, but it was horribly sad and unjustified that at the end of the book he actually has to move out of the country that he was living in to go live somewhere else because they won't accept his sexuality. But he ended up moving, like the guy that he's seeing and is in love with is actually lives in that other country. So, you know, it's kind of like they're just moving over there together to be together, even though it's horrible again that because of his sexuality he is potentially his friends, but like his close friends accept him, but a lot of people in that world don't, which is really horrible, and hopefully that's addressed in the next book. I love Sania and Karen's character growth in this. I love getting Karen's backstory. Like, he's gone from this imposing High Lord, like, well, he is the High Lord, but like this imposing sort of a mentor, but more of like this ruling kind of person that you can't really get close to like this amazing partner, love interest. What a change. Like, oh my gosh, it's been really interesting, and their love story was done really well. So it does bring up the topic again about power plays in relationships and having a romantic relationship with someone that was once your teacher. I am very glad that Canavan didn't have them get together until they were exiled from the guild, from the guild. So officially he's no longer her guardian, he's no longer the High Lord, he is no longer her teacher. I did really like that. There is a little bit of like spark that I was a bit like, am I reading into this when they were in the guild still and he was still officially her guardian? But I was kind of like, am I just attracted to him because he's like around my age group and all the other suitors are younger, like they're 20, Akaran's like 33, I'm 26, so you know, I would probably pick the older, more mature guy as opposed to the younger one, so I didn't know whether I was reading into that, and it turns out I wasn't. I loved them together so freaking much. So much. They do mention in dialogue about their age difference and how he's 13 years older than her, and Sania's like, well, you're not actually my guardian anymore, we've been exiled. And also people from the houses, which is the high class, are married off at such a younger age to older people, like them as young as 16, and at this point Sania is 20 and Akaran is 33, so there is 13 years difference. But also we know even in our modern, like back in that society, because this is sort of looks like it's in medieval days, back in that society you were married off at a young age. But even in our modern day society, the older that you get, the easier it is to end up with someone who is a bit older than you, and it's not super uncommon for people to be 13 years apart. It is more obvious when it gets older and older and older. With age difference, more common is around like the 7 mark, but I do know people that are like 13 years apart in age. It's a little bit early that Sania is 20, but also again she's in a world where she's having to grow up and be vastly more mature at a younger age. And I really like that at this point in the book, earlier on the relationship would have been what, but where they are in the world and in knowing each other and in their abilities and in their social statuses at this point, they are so much more even than they were a book ago. Like Sania, you know, for one, again, they're exiled, but for two, Sania actually has the same abilities as he has. Like there isn't this unfair bridge in power where he's like so much more powerful than she is. She knows everything, and there are so many scenarios where she's actually got his back, but also so many scenarios where she is the one fighting out the front. That was so cool. Like she does the final battle, and she also kills more of these bad exiled magicians than he does, and it is so freaking awesome of her. I love her so much. And Akaran wants to protect her, and he didn't want her to learn this kind of stuff. He didn't want anybody to learn any of this kind of stuff. But when she was like, and sorry, I'm getting off track, but in this whole scenario there is this really key conversation between them two where they're kind of like figuring out their relationship, and he's kind of like, you know, is this right or wrong? And she's like, I didn't leave for you. I didn't get exiled because I loved you. I left because you were gonna die and you were out by yourself out here, and you were our only hope to save our family and friends and our country. So she's like, I didn't come for you. I didn't come to keep you company. I came to save my universe. And then I've just fallen in love with you as like a side bonus. But she is like, I love that that conversation was in there, that she's like, I'm doing this for my world. I'm not dying for you. I'm dying for everybody else, or potentially dying. So don't get a big head, but I love you. And I love them together. And he dies. And I was so upset. Oh my god. Because to me, despite the previous like teacher-student guardian relationship, the conversations that they had, to me at least, in my knowledge, it felt like a healthy relationship. And I was really excited to see what was going to happen. Like, I was living for their romantic snippets, and I was so excited to know that there was another trilogy in this world, because I was so hopeful that we would get to see them together and get to see them figuring out life together, and him helping Sania to bring the bridge up, like the balance between the lower classes. And I just wanted to see them together and happy and migrating their futures together, and we can't. And I'm so sad. Like, I've never been this heartbroken over someone dying in a book, I never thought that I cried in books. And the first book that I bawled my eyes out with, those characters still ended up together. Like, it was in the middle of the book and I thought they weren't going to be together, and they got together. And then the second time that I've cried in a book was when I felt like the author changed that character's personality, and I was mad at the author. And I'm not mad at anybody in this book. I totally understand what Trudi Canavan did, and I think Karen's motivations for doing it was correct. I think she made the right choice plot-wise because it's really believable. And I actually read an FAQ on her page, and people were like, why did you have a Karen die? And she's like, because that's war. Because that is war, and that is what has happened. Just because you like someone doesn't mean that they're going to survive. And because of, there is so much in this where a Karen is like, I don't want you to die, and they didn't know how powerful these outcasts were going to be, and so he knew that he was going to throw everything into it so that he wouldn't have to watch Sania die, and so he died instead. And I can't tell you how sad I was. I was crying. I didn't believe it at first when I read it, and I had to keep going, and then I was like, no, like, you guys know Black Magic, like, bring him back, which of course it can't, and I'm glad that she didn't. And she even says on her website that she didn't want to bring him back because at the time that she published it, too many people were being resurrected, and she's like, no, people die, and they do, and it was so sad. And I just, like, yeah, I'm still upset. Like, I'm literally grieving this character, and I don't know what to read next, because obviously I'm hoping at this point that you're seeing this, I've read something else, and you'll probably get it in a reading vlog, so I'll link it up above to see how I recovered from this. But I literally, like, I don't know what to do, like, and it's because I know that it's not going to get better. Like, he's not going to come back, like, they're not going to resurrect him, he's not going to come back, and he's gone, and that is so heartbreaking. It's so sad. I'm nearly done, I promise. This has like been filming for 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, talking about this book. I just want to talk about the end. So the last couple of pages. After Karen dies, we have a lot of, which I'll probably go back. I'm excited to reread this and reread it slower and enjoy them together again, and then read the ending bits. So after Karen dies, there is bits where like the other characters are talking and we're in their POVs, not Sania's. But then finally at the end we get her POV, and she's at the new hospital that she helped build and that she's healing at for the people in the slums. And she's treating her auntie, Jonah. And then Rothman walks in, who is her mentor that she loves like a father. And she announces that she's pregnant and she's happy and this is like the main critique that I have for this book, is that this pregnancy reveal and the emotions behind it felt a bit too slap happy. Like, it felt a bit too much like, I've just done this really horrible, sad thing to my characters and I need to end it on an uplifting note. And even though I'm glad that Sania's pregnant, as someone, you know, who hopes to have kids one day, and if something were to happen, then that would be a comfort for me as well. But I feel like the ending should have been bittersweet. Like, it could have been hopeful, but also bittersweet. And I wish that they had gone more into Sania's feelings. Like, there's this weird thing where Sania was like, I wanted to tell Jonah, but then Rothling, you're there, so I guess you can find out too. But I feel like it could have been a really nice moment just between her and her aunt. And I wish they had had a longer conversation about how she is like so glad and overjoyed to find out that she's pregnant, and that they didn't do the contraception thing really well because it means that she's got a piece of him left. But I also feel like she should have then talked about how sad she is and how much she is going to feel like melancholy to have this experience without a Karen. Like, I wanted it to be like this bittersweet conflict of emotions, like just more realistic and not the slap happy thing that it was. And just giving us, I know this is like a big book as it is, like this is how chunky it is. I just wish if we had like half a dozen more pages just to have that conversation and then maybe summarizing over like the next couple of months, and she's slowly getting better and starting to like feel like herself again from her grief, but obviously like that period is really short, and they find out that she's pregnant in about like 3 months, and so 3 months is not a very long time to have lost the love of your life. And I feel like it's just, I mean, sorry, I just was like totally stereotypical and like assuming people's grief. I don't know, I just like, I mean, I haven't been through it, so I don't know. I haven't been in this scenario before, thankfully, so I don't know. But I just felt, it just didn't feel right completely. Like, it just felt like a quick happy ending when we just needed just a bit more. Just a bittersweet ending that is hopeful. Okay, so that's my review. That's it, done. Wow, this is long. I'm really eager to read the prequel, and I'll probably do that soon because it's on my physical TBR shelf that I'm nearly done with-ish. I also do want to read the next trilogy, as I've said, but I don't want to read it now, and it might be until the end of the year or next year that I read it, because I really hope Sania gets a happy ending romantically, but I'm just not ready to read that because I'm not ready to see her with someone else and to be happy for her. So that is it. That is my review. I'm done. I'm finished. Thank you so much if you've watched to the end of it. Please don't forget to like this video and comment if you have some thoughts. I'm so excited to talk to people about this book. Definite 5 stars, and probably going to be one of my favourite books that I've read this year, if my favourite books ever. I'm so excited to reread it eventually and to enjoy things a lot slower so that they don't go by too fast. Please don't forget to subscribe if you would like to see more from me, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!